Salutations, fellow nerds. I'm Rick Y, the wise guy, and today is December 21st, 2024. And I'm popping in here into the weekend because I need to give all of you an incredibly important update when it comes to news that is broken. That's right. Saudi Arabia has reintroduced the Persian wild ass to its natural habitat after a century of having been known as extinct. Speaking of wild ass, Mike Johnson and the Republicans in the House were yet again saved by the Democrats because they couldn't get their shit together in time for the looming government shutdown. Crisis has officially been averted. Well, at least until March, of course, when this whole ordeal starts all over again. I was hoping this was actually going to happen, and I would wake up updating everybody with much better news than from last night when all of the drama occurred. Of course, this has pissed off some members of Congress, which is kind of strange given that this is one of their only few actual roles in government. So, if you enjoy news, history, and Americana, hit that like and subscribe button. If you enjoy real-time updates and dig my content, hit that like and that little notification bell. I would be much obliged. After letting his two billionaire appointees tell him how things should run, Donald Trump was humiliated when 38 Republicans voted against his demands. That means almost 20% of Republicans in the House balked when Trump told them what to do. Given the scope of their cuts, this wasn't really entirely surprising, but it was a stark warning that Congress, at least for now, isn't simply going to play ball and jump when Trump says jump. Luckily, there seems to be enough who recognized how terrible this kind of activity was going to be for the American people and their constituents back home in their districts. But this also threw a lot into chaos and led many to speculate that they were creating a fiasco wherein government would be sending government employees home just before the holidays, simply because Trump didn't want a budget crisis in his upcoming administration. The problem is that, again, this is Congress's mess, and they've been wallowing in this filth for months. Trying to get this political win out of this is both foolish and ill-conceived. So instead of going along with the ride, the Republicans did just as I said they would, and leaned on Democrats to save them from this mess that they have created. Mind you, if there's one consistency with the 118th Congress, it's that it has been remarkably unproductive. That could very well be, but by design, given how many of MAGA caucus members in general want to simply dismantle everything and tear government apart at the seams. But it appears that the next Congress will also be walking into their next term as unorganized as they were this time around. And it's probably going to have to fall back on Democrats again and again and again just to be the adults in the room. Although more than 30 Republicans also voted against the successful CR that eventually went to the Senate, it doesn't look like this is going to be an easy road. I mentioned that Trump was making a demand about raising the debt limit, and this is interesting because when Democrats wanted to do just that, the current Republicans in Congress and Donald Trump were vocally against it when the vote was for it and it was on the table. So why is he trying to do this now at a time where it's not necessary or even relevant? That's a good question. He says so he doesn't have to be saddled with this when he's president. But again, it's Congress, not president, who passes budgets, which implies that this man still has yet to gather some of the most basic functions and regulations of the government that he is about to be the executive officer thereof. He then called anyone who didn't jump immediately on board stupid, and that anyone who went against him would be primaried. Good luck with that. So now the incoming president has demonstrated just before taking office that he is both impotent when it comes to the real power that he thinks he holds, and he's full of hot air when it comes to the threats that he thinks he can levy against members of Congress. Trump not only lost, but showed a supreme ignorance to his own position and roles, while also showing the American people how little he can actually accomplish without the support of a legislature that's not going to go along with his ride. This is definitely not a good look for someone who loves to portray himself as some kind of strong man and deal maker when he's not even capable of doing either. It's as if he wants to start a fight in a bar with some random guy over his girlfriend and then getting laid out in front of everybody with one hit, and then that dude goes home with his girlfriend too. It was humiliating. And the fact that it was Democrats, not Republicans, who will again be cleaning this mess up, it shows that bipartisanship only really matters to conservatives in Congress when their asses are personally on the line. On top of all of this, he played his hand way too early in this game. He's already showing that he isn't interested in actually managing the debt like his first term. He isn't interested in paying off the bills. Yet another promise that he made to his voters and constituents that he's going to break. A person who is preparing to actually raise the debt ceiling is doing so because he's preparing for major expenses in the near future. The nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that actually tracks the national debt is called the Committee for a Responsible Budget, or CFRB for short. And it concluded that Donald Trump, during his first term, engorged the U.S. debt by $7.8 trillion and an additional $8.4 trillion over the next 10 years in interest. This is not new information. In fact, it's one of the many reasons that Americans voted for Biden in 2020. Trump had grossly blown up and accumulated, not paid off, the cost of the national debt after railing against it and his opponents. The political ramifications of this are clear. Republicans are incapable of governing without needing their hands held by Democratic colleagues. And Trump is nothing but bluster. The next 2 years will be like herding cats if this is reflective of our future. Threats, incompetence, failed legislation while watching costs skyrocket for the average American, all because of Trump's broken promises. And the debt also going through the roof. Now, instead of keeping their heads down and hats in hand, some Republicans have actually chose to make this whole situation worse by suggesting that Elon Musk, not Mike Johnson, should be the Speaker of the House. If that isn't the most short-sighted, brain-dead strategy going forward, then I clearly don't have a good imagination. I think Adam Mockler inferred a brilliant point today. Imagine having spent so long convincing your base to be afraid of Barack Obama because to you he was an African when he wasn't, while simultaneously trying to hand power over to an African who just doesn't happen to be black. Take all the time you need on that. The incoming Trump administration is already trying to sell you and Americans out for profit at every turn. We were lucky this time around that enough Republicans could go and get rid of their prides and egos for just a moment to do what was right for us in the 11th hour. But I cannot say with certainty that the next House of Representatives are going to have much more in the way of integrity. What little has been demonstrated by them in recent memory, it doesn't give me a lot of hope. The best way to make sure that we can hold them and their feet to their fires by staying informed, staying engaged, and staying decent. And if you think this content here would be helpful to someone in your life, feel free to share. The best way that we can try to actively have these conversations that we need is by actually opening that dialogue. And I know it's tough. So if I can be your voice, by all means, I would be more than happy to do that. So y'all come back now. You hear?